Escalation, my man. So, it's been a long time since I've told this story, and like I said, this story just kind of means a lot to me, and okay. So, I'm just gonna kind of get into it, okay? So, back when I was in high school, and it was really like my 9th to 10th grade. My dad, my dad was a great dad, right? Like, I fucking love my dad. And okay, so it was like 9th and 10th grade. My dad was a great dad. He fucking built a business from the ground up, all that. I respect the shit out of him. But right about 9th and 10th grade, right? And me being in a school. The fuck he's saying, dude? The drops are now working. What a great. What the fuck?
I'm dying.
All right, that kind of let me get back together for a minute. That's good. All right, so like I said, my dad, great dad. I fucking loved him, respect him a lot. But right about like the 9th and 10th grade, I would come home, right, and my dad would be like passed out on the couch, like to the point like I'd be like, hey dad, but like, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Because at this point I'm in 9th and 10th grade. I just had no clue what the fuck was going on, right? Well, my dad got into a really big drug problem right around like 9th or 10th grade, to the point where he would be taking pills and like he wouldn't remember anything. He would become a completely different person. It was like that kind of thing, right? Like where he would wake up the next day and not remember anything, just be like, what day is it, So I would come home to that a lot of the times, and that's it. I eventually started finding out like what was happening, right? So I had a girlfriend in high school, and I was like really into her, right? Like this was right around like my 16th birthday. I was really into her. You guys know, like, your first love, you're just like around her all the time, right? So you're around her, you want to be around her all the time, and after school every single day I would go and hang out with her, right? So one day, at this point, let me go back a little bit. My parents were getting a divorce, right? And it was because of what was happening, like 100%, right? The family was getting torn apart. So my mom ended up going and living somewhere else for a little while, right? While my dad stayed at the house, and I stayed at the house as well. Because I didn't have anywhere else to live, right? Like like where was I gonna go? My mom went somewhere, and there was no way I could go there, So like, I stayed at the house, right? And what would happen is my mom would come by every week and grab the laundry for me, right? And do the laundry. So one day after school, right, I had a doctor's appointment. And I was hanging out with my girlfriend, and I lived about 30 minutes away from my school. So, and my girlfriend lived very close to the school. So I was pretty far away from the house, right? So I was over at my girlfriend's house, and I got a call, and it was from my dad, and I had a doctor's appointment that day, right? And I was like really in my girlfriend. I was just like, Dad, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it. I'm feeling a little sick, And my dad like took it to heart, right? My dad was like, no, you're fucking going to this, right? Like real, like he was like I said no, like I'm okay on going to the doctors, and he was like demanding that I go to this, right? And I was like, all right, this is a little weird. So like me and him kind of got into an argument, right? Because he was like yelling at me, really yelling at me, and over like a doctor's appointment. And I ended up like hanging up the phone, and I ended on some words that maybe weren't the best, like. Okay. Okay. My bad. Okay, so ended with some words that I regret to this day. Okay, so that's how that conversation went. This is a really hard part of the story. If I can make it through this part of the story, I'll be good. So ended on some words that I still regret to this day. But he was like really yelling at me, right? And I was just like very confused about why it was all happening. And ended up hanging up the phone with him. You know, didn't end with "I hate you" or anything like that, but ended with some words that really hit home, you know. So, and that's just the way I was. That was the way I was back in high school. You know, I kind of kept to myself a little bit, and I was kind of a loner, because the reason why is because I would come home and, like I said, my dad would be like fucked up on meds, and my mom wouldn't be home or anything like that, and I would have to deal with my dad. My dad would just like pass out randomly, and so I was kind of like a loner, right? So I kind of stood my ground when someone did something like that to me. So like when my dad started yelling at me, I just started, you know, just arguing back. So I ended up hanging up the phone. And later that day, probably about an hour or two later, I get a phone call from my sister crying, right? Said I have to come home right now. Like, I have to come home right now. And it was from my sister, right? And my sister was freaking out. Like, she was having it, like, it sounded like she was breathing weird. Like, because of the stress and anxiety of whatever was happening, right? So I go home, right? And I'm just going to kind of tell the story from exactly like what happened. So usually what would happen is my dad would be home. Like I said, my mom would come by and get the laundry for me, and my mom went by, and my dad wasn't there and the laundry wasn't there, and she said, she told me that she called my dad, and my dad was like, yeah, I'll be there in a few minutes, right? Which was like really weird. Thank you guys so much for the donations, guys. Just like let me power through this real quick so that I don't get like caught up on anything and can't make it through the story. So my mom went back to go get the laundry, right? And it ended up being that my dad said that he'll be there in a few minutes, right? And so my mom was pulled into the driveway. It's a driveway where it's only one way out, right? So she said like when she got up, my dad pulled in behind and like parked vertically like across the driveway so that she couldn't get out, right? And my mom says she was sitting in her car and she looked behind her in the mirror and my dad got out with a knife, right? Like this is no joke, guys. This is like real shit real quick. All right? Like real shit. Been saving this story for a little bit. So my dad got out with a knife and walked over to my mom's car, and my mom was lucky enough to go over to the passenger side while because my dad was like really like fucked up on drugs, right? So he wasn't his normal state at all. So he could hardly run, right? So like my dad made it over to my mom, ended up like stabbing her in the leg and stuff like that, and luckily he only got her leg and my mom was able to run away to the neighbors. After that, my dad proceeded to get into his car and drive away from the scene, and there ended up being a cop chase behind him where he committed suicide halfway through. Okay, so like there's a big car chase, cop chase with my dad, and he ended up just taking his life right after that happened, right? And I'm so thankful that my mom got away. Well, I found Yo, Dougal. Alright. Thank you so much for the donation, Dougal. So, what was gonna happen? What was gonna happen was the reason why my dad got so up in arms about the doctor's appointment is that if I would have went home that day, my dad would have killed both myself and my mom and himself, and I wouldn't be here, guys. It's real. He made notes of what was going to happen and stuff like that. If I would have went home that day, dude, I wouldn't be here today. So, yeah. So, you know, there's two big things that I take away from this story, and you know, I really wouldn't be the person I am today if it didn't happen, and it's any kind of bad story you can look through with a good spin, right? Because
I'm dying. Help me.
you can kind of look at every story with a good spin, right? Because I wouldn't be who I am today if it didn't happen, right? Because I'm thankful every single day that I'm here, because I truly wouldn't be here, dude. I truly wouldn't be here. And one of the other big lessons that I learned from this story is, dude, talk to people every day like it's your last, dude, because you never know what the last things you say to someone is, right? So, damn. That's pretty much the story, my homies. Yeah, dude. So, a lot of people ask me all the time how I stay so positive. I'm lucky, homies. I'm lucky to have all of you guys here and supporting. You know, I fucking love you guys so much, and you guys keep me so positive all the time, and I can't thank you enough for that. But it's a pretty big story, homies. I've been waiting a little bit to tell that, because every single time I tell it, this is pretty much how it goes. Like, I'm not a crier. I don't really cry over things or get too emotional, right? But this is one of those things that hit the soft spot. You know, I was thinking about telling this story, and my mom reached out to me and supported me telling it, and just how it might help some people out there. So, you know, I'm not telling this story for pity. I'm not telling this story for anything, guys. I'm telling this story because I think the community has came to the point where it's time for you guys to know a little bit more about me, and why I stay positive, and why I've created, or why I've tried to create the whole positive vibe around a community. Truly lucky to be here, guys. Yeah, you guys don't have to be you guys don't have to be donating like this, guys. Seriously, I love you guys. Yeah, seriously, I love you guys. I see the chat spamming. Hearts. You know, on a real note though, guys, just think about, you know, before you get angry and stuff like that. It's just a lot of things aren't worth getting angry over and keeping your time up on. And if you ever have a bad experience, homies, trust me, this is coming straight from the heart, guys. It will make you a better person, dude. In the long run, you will see that you wouldn't be the person you are later on in life if it wasn't for some of the things that happen in your life, man. And I know life can be hard as shit, but dude, just stick with it, homies. Seriously, there's a lot of people that come in here with suicide messages and stuff like that. You know, I've felt the pain. I've felt as much pain as I could through losing someone, and it's just like, none of it's worth it, dude. You just gotta stay positive, seriously. Okay. I'm happy I got through that. Shed some tears. shed some tears. Let me get through these donations real quick. I'm sorry, guys. I'm like a little flustered because like I haven't told that story in a long time, and there's you know, I'm very happy to tell my community and all of you guys that are here. Like I said, I'm not telling this story for any other reason than I thought it was time, for the sole reason that the community's been so positive recently. So